My name is Adrian Nantchev, and this channel is all about helping you become a remarkable entrepreneur. So that's why I started this podcast, to bring you people from all over the world, whether entrepreneurs or not, to share with you their story, their journey, and their inspiration. Today I have with me Ron, all the way from Texas. So please, Ron, tell the world, who are you, what's your story, and why are you doing what you're doing?
Oh boy, that's such a loaded question. So I'm Ron Valderrama, and I am the founder of StreamNowTV, which is a standalone streaming service that primarily focuses on independent content. So kind of think like Netflix for indie stuff, for the most part. Not always, though. And so yeah, I've kind of always had an entrepreneurial bent, and I think I had mentioned to you, although the audience hasn't been privy to that, but I mentioned to you that I kind of started a small company when I was in school, actually, just to kind of help pay the bills and all that stuff. And really, it was actually kind of it dealt in like the fashion and like art industry, I guess. So basically, we were just helping promote like up and coming designers and artists, throwing events. And I'll tell you that art world is kind of frothy if you can get into it a little bit there too. We made a few bucks off of that, and then I wanted to work in fashion at the time, so that's kind of what I went out and did afterwards, and kind of slowly but surely became more of a bit of a corporate drone, honestly. And then several years later, wound up. A guy that I was working with asked me to help him kind of form a company and get something going, and it actually was doing pretty well. I'll try and hide the names and all that stuff to protect the presumed innocent. But as we were doing that, just had a pretty bad falling out with the actual co-founder, and so I always kind of say it's hard enough being an entrepreneur. There's enough things that are coming at you from all different angles that will essentially ruin your chances anyway. So you can't have friendly fire on top of it. You'll just kill yourself. And so that's kind of where we were heading. Was there was more friendly fire than needed to be. So we just decided to dissolve it. But during that time, I'd worked with a couple of filmmakers, just not on films or anything, but just on as part of what we were doing. And they kept asking me to get involved in these projects. And I was like, I'm not a film guy. I don't really know anything. I'm not an actor. I'm not a director. I'm not a producer. So I don't know really what you want me to do here. And they kept on bugging me about it. And then one of them had a film that was on, I don't know, just again, we'll save the names, but probably the largest streaming company in the world. We'll just say that, right? And he was like, well, we should make a series out of this show, and we'll just pitch it to them, and we'll see if we can make it happen. So that was Michael Campo. Eric Vale and Michael Campo are just like two really instrumental people, the two filmmakers that really kind of pushed me. So we decided, okay, this is a good idea. They had the film had been streaming for a little while on their several years on the platform, and had done well and had good reviews and all that stuff. So I'm like, okay, we don't need a pilot, obviously, because the film is the pilot. They like it. They've had it for several years. So we wound up getting this big boy meeting with the top executives there, and we just kind of crashed and burned. We didn't really know what we were doing, to be honest. It was a pretty massive failure for the most part. And then we wound up taking it to a couple cable networks out here, and it just never got off the ground. But I kind of had the bug at that point that I wanted to make something. And so my personality is kind of like, I tell my wife, it's like, if you don't want me to sit at the table, then I'll just build my own damn table, basically. So I looked around at how I was starting to consume content as well. This is, going back a little bit, but, I was starting to use this like set-top box to stream, I don't know, YouTube and Netflix. And that was kind of how, I would get up. I always get up really early. So I was up way before everybody else, and I would get on and I would watch like, I don't know, Guy Kawasaki videos or something like that, or Jason Calacanis, This Week in Startups. And so I would get up, and that's how I was watching it. And I'd watch it on, was streaming it. And then I'm looking around at all these other people, and I'm like, there's like, a web series industry, there's a film industry, short film, all this other stuff. And a lot of them are trying to put this stuff out on like YouTube. I'm like, this isn't very user friendly, but okay. And there's more cat videos than, good content. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm just going to build this thing. I'll see if maybe I can put together something that would help essentially break down the barriers of getting into the industry, right? And for myself mainly, but I knew there had to be a bunch of others there. So if I could kind of band together with them, maybe I'd have a fighting chance at doing this thing, basically. And so I made this honestly pretty horrendous website called StreamNowTV. And it had almost no content. I was basically calling around and begging people to put content on there and stuff. Most of it wasn't very good. And which kind of defeated the first purpose, which is that, trying to find talented people to just basically break down the barrier for them. But anyway, so I put this thing together. It was really ugly and didn't have a lot on it. And it wound up still getting, I think like 6,000 views or something like that. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, how in the world did 6,000 people sit down and watch this? It's so bad. But it made me think. It was kind of validation of, okay, there's something here. People are wanting to stream content, right? People are looking for ways to consume this stuff. So I was like, okay, well, I need to start refining. I'm not a web designer or anything like that, so I need to just start refining this. And so I started to kind of learn how to make it better, essentially, and continue to try and find more content. And then, I just kind of started educating myself. How can I build this platform? What is Netflix and Amazon and Hulu doing right? Well, obviously it's content, but I'd say one other thing is that they are everywhere, right? It's not a streaming platform because it has a website. It's a streaming platform because it's on every screen. You're going to, mobile apps, you're going into your smart TV, your computer, whatever it might be. Hell, I think even smart watches have some of that stuff on it now. So I really started to dive in and try and figure out how can I get an app built for this. And, basically just working almost around the clock on it. And a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of Googling, a lot of GitHub, all that stuff. And basically able to get an app off the ground. I was like, okay, this is starting to feel like a real thing now. And then shortly after that, started working on building a Roku channel, which is like a streaming set-top box for your TV. So next thing I know, we're on the TV. Like, this is a TV channel now. This is really happening. And I'm probably leaving out a lot of the, how is the hot dog made, so to speak, because it wasn't like there's a lot of stuff kind of happening, right, to teach myself how to do this, to continue to grow the platform. So you focus on like these three areas where you really need multiple people, in my opinion. But because I had that bad founder breakup, I kind of just didn't want to have a co-founder again. So you have these three areas of like, you really need to focus on growth, right? And then you need to focus on the content, which I would almost, if we were calling it like a restaurant, I would almost call it the food, right? And then you need the platform. You need to focus on building the platform, which is the actual building the restaurant, right? So if you walk into a really swank, awesome restaurant and they haven't done any PR or anything and it's completely empty, it's not going to last, right? Or if you go into this awesome restaurant and they don't have any food, you're not going to go back there again. If you have really awesome food but it doesn't have the ambiance, then you may not go back there. So you really need all these things kind of firing on all three cylinders. So yeah, those are the kind of things I was just one man basically trying to handle all that stuff. And really to this day, it's still kind of an issue because a lot of times I'll focus on one and then one will kind of slow down a little bit. If I'm focusing on growth, I'm not getting as much content, yada, yada, yada. So, gosh, that was a long answer, but that's kind of That's kind of what I'm trying to do. I'm really just trying to break down the barriers of talented people getting into the industry.
Some pretty cool stuff there, Ron. When you said that, going back to the start,
Okay.
you mentioned that art and fashion is frothy. How so?
Oh, well, I was saying that the art part was especially frothy because, you'd start to kind of plan these events essentially, and then you try and find your audience, just like anything you're doing, right? You have to find your audience, and so for the art world, it's usually you kind of want some people that are just kind of hip involved, so that the people who you're trying to get the money from essentially kind of feel hip and it's a cool place to be and all that stuff. But then you ultimately you want somebody that's kind of wealthy enough to buy the art. And but for us, we were representing underrepresented artists and designers and stuff of that nature. So for us, we would take kind of the same commission that like an art gallery would take essentially. And so for us, we would have these awesome fun parties and invite some pretty wealthy people, and then they buy art, and then we get half, we get 50% of what the piece sold for. So for us, especially college students and stuff, for us it's like, okay, well, if we sell a piece of art in the night, then we're solid, man. We got this thing, we've made our money here for a while for a student, right? So for us, we didn't need to sell a whole gallery's worth of art to make it worth it, right? We just really need to sell one or two pieces, and it was quite a bit, and so we would usually try and focus on like throwing like one fashion event and one art event a month, and so that was pretty much what we were doing to not eat ramen noodles. It's cool. But yeah, what I was basically trying to say though is what makes it so frothy is that it didn't take a lot of money for us to put the events together. We just really scrapped and hustled to like get partners involved, get like liquor companies involved to help us maybe promote their vodka brand or whatever while we were there for free booze, and try and get a venue where it's like, hey, if we can drive people to this venue, on a slow night for you, that'll be good, right? And so, so we kind of just hustled that together, and then, if you sell a piece, we get half of the commission on or half of the sale price. So it's just such a high margin that you didn't, for me, it felt frothy. So as a young, 20-year-old, 21-year-old guy.
Yeah, and that set you up as an entrepreneur, or certainly solidified it in you, so as to then go into it. Because you said that if they weren't allowed to sit at the table, you make your own table.
That's right. So
I'm curious then about StreamNowTV. My biggest question to that is, what makes it different from other things out there?
Well, like I said, I mean, there's some aspects where I guess you have to kind of look at it as a dual marketplace for starters, right? So you have, if you think of like Uber, right? You have the person who's getting the car, and then you have the driver. And Uber had to go out and find both. So both of those people are Uber's clients, right? The driver and the person being driven. And so for us, the same thing applies, right? I'm looking for growth of eyeballs to watch this content, and then I'm also looking for filmmakers who believe in what I'm doing, essentially, right? And want to be part of it. And so from the filmmaker perspective, we're giving a pretty significant audience that they don't have, right? So a lot of the content that we have, we've well surpassed whatever views that they were getting on their own or have gotten on their own, by a magnitude or more. And so if you look at that one side of the spectrum of the filmmaker as being one of my customers, which they are, in my opinion, or clients or whatever you want to call them, from that standpoint, we do a lot in terms of, help get them publicity, press. We advertise for their show. So if they don't have an advertising, most of these indie film people don't have a big budget for advertising or anything like that. So we help advertise. And I think more importantly, if you are just looking at, say, YouTube or something of that nature, we're giving them a real kind of refined user experience, right? So if all they're on is YouTube and let's just say it was a web series, you might watch the web series and it might end and it might actually suggest another video to go away from that content. So we're really focused on the creator part of giving it that refined, like, Netflix type experience where they can watch it on any screen, your TV, Apple TV, Roku, all that other stuff, where they may not have that available on, say, like Vimeo or YouTube or something of that nature. And yeah, I think we're helping them find a different audience, right, than what they have right now. So that's one part of it. On the consumer side, obviously, one big thing for us is that we are, putting content out there that's not really, not necessarily seen. I mean, we've got a lot of stuff on there that's exclusive to Stream Now, so it's not going to be found anywhere. I guess in that sense, you could almost call it like an original series or whatever, a really original film, similar to what all the bigger guys are doing right now. So in that aspect, for the consumer side, you're finding stuff that you're not going to see on a lot of the other streaming networks. So if you are a big streamer, if you watch a lot of streaming content, I am. I don't even have cable anymore, so I use Netflix, Hulu, Tubi, all these other things. But if you get on there, and you'll see a lot of the same content on all of the platforms. I mean, they're working with the same distribution companies and stuff. So for us, I think the content that you're going to see on here, for the most part, is stuff that you won't see on those other streaming networks. So that makes us a little different, but I don't want to be overly different. In fact, when I'm designing the actual platform from a UI standpoint, UX standpoint as well, I'm looking at what all the big companies are doing, and I'm taking what I feel is like the best part of those things and trying to make my platform that. So I don't really want to be different. I mean, this is essentially a TV channel. So, I don't want to overthink or outthink the room here when, if you just look at it as basic form of this is a TV channel, what makes ABC or NBC or I don't know what channels you guys watch out there. But what makes these different channels different from each other on a network basis is just the content, essentially. And the average person watches 17 TV channels, right, in a given year, I think, on average. So you might have this cable package with 250 channels in your cable package, but the average person watches about 17 of those, and they probably watch about 5 of those more than any of them. So from my standpoint, I don't really want to be overly different. I want it to feel very much the same, actually, as the other ones that they're watching right now. I just want to be one of the 5 to 17 that they use on a semi-regular basis.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. 17 channels a year. That's interesting. I barely ever watch TV, so to me it's like 0 or 1.
Ironically, I don't watch a lot either.
That's okay. That's okay.
Actually, I have to watch a ton of content. That's probably why. Is I'm constantly screening stuff, so I don't really watch a lot of.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a screening process then, because is there a standard quality or something that you allow on there, or what's the benchmarks?
Yeah, as I mentioned, it was wide open spaces for the beginning part. I was just more begging people to be on, but as I started to build the library up, it became overwhelming, actually, because so many people were finding out about it and then sending me stuff, and most of it was so bad. And then you got to be kind of the bad guy and say no and all that stuff too. So first of all, you're wasting a lot of time, or you're spending a lot of time. I shouldn't say wasting, but you're spending a lot of time watching this content, and then you're having to kind of be the bad dude saying it's just not quite up to snuff. So, but we really want to just make sure the production quality is good. I don't want this to be the Ron Valderrama's personal taste TV channel. So I try not to involve my taste as much, but I do kind of look at how tight the writing and directing and acting is, and then also the production value. And one of the biggest things for me is just the sound. like how well is the audio done, because that'll ruin everything right from the get-go. But yeah, along the way, it got so inundated that I shut down submissions and basically I open it up 1 week a quarter, and I actually charge people who want to submit to help reduce reduce kind of just the willy-nilly submitting. So, I explained this is kind of the range of things. Obviously, if you get on and you watch the content, that you'll probably see kind of the range of what I'm looking for. But it kind of outlines a little bit more on our submissions page. This is kind of what will get you denied for sure, and you're probably not going to make it. I say it like 4 times on the submission page. It will probably not be accepted. So think twice, and then that's also going to cost you $20 to submit. And so that helped reduce it, but not entirely. And so initially I had that open. I was just charging, and then I had to reduce it again to just 1 week out of the quarter. And then for the most part, I'm out seeking it more than anything. I'm finding stuff that seems interesting and well done, and then putting it on there. So. That's one other thing also. Like I'm talking to a show right now that I'm about to sign. We're still finishing up the contract and all that stuff. But when you talk about kind of what makes this different, again, from the creator side, I pay in advance as opposed to like YouTube or something like that, which pays like a revenue share. So we kind of we become a little bit scientific, a little bit, it's like 70%. Science and 30% art in terms of kind of coming up with that number of what we're going to pay and all that stuff. But I think it's a pretty big benefit that, most YouTube creators don't ever even see a check from YouTube. And so we're able to kind of line that out and, look at the goals of what we're both trying to achieve, and then come up with a number financially that's equitable for both people. And so that's where it is now. Is I've worked with some of the largest distribution companies to make some deals. I work directly with the filmmakers, but for the most part, I'm curating a lot of this stuff that's on there for the most part.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like you're curating it rather than creating it. You're just collecting it and you're giving it to the distribution channels. That's what it kind of sounded like then.
Yeah.
And
it's funny because I was talking to somebody, an executive from like one of the bigger streaming companies, and he's like, well, "You really need to hire somebody. It's kind of a full-time job for that part." I was like, this thing is bootstrapped, man. I can't hire anybody, so I've just had to again. That's why I was saying it's one of those buckets where if you're not focused on it all the time, then something else, then it slips and then you focus on something else, and that starts to slip. So it's hard work, but anyway, I guess that's why we got into it.
Yeah, that's the thing about business in the beginning. It's very intensive on your own, and you have to leverage out essentially over time as you can.
Yep, exactly.
And you mentioned sound as well. Yeah, I heard a statistic somewhere saying that people are more forgiving about the video quality being poor, but if the audio quality is poor, then they really don't like that, and then there's the watch time is drastically reduced then.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's true. I'm not sure what that statistic says in terms of the percentage or whatever, but I mean, this stuff is pretty basic. You're just think of yourself as a consumer basically, and if there's things that you won't tolerate, then there's magnitudes more that are the same. So yeah, you're 100% right. The sound is a whip, and it just takes yourself trying to watch something with bad sound to know I can't do this. I can't imagine other people doing it, right? So.
Yeah, I'm also very curious about how you were growing the platform. You said at the start you were begging people to get on there, but
yeah,
you were trying to build an app for it, and you also mentioned Apple TV and something called Roku or Roku.
Roku, yeah, it's actually bigger than Apple TV in terms of the audience. It's basically like Apple TV. It's basically an Apple TV. So you connect it to your television and you stream. There's like 3,500 channels on there essentially. then I think the user base is somewhere around 16 million units sold, or not units sold, but accounts, whatever. So so there's probably more units sold than that, but yeah. So comparatively speaking, it's actually larger than Apple TV. Um, Although I like Apple TV more, but anyway, that's kind of a preference.
How do you spell that, Roku?
It's Roku.
Okay. I was
It's a
doing.
pretty big deal. It's about to they're about to IPO. It actually started as a joint venture with Netflix, I believe. And so at the time, Netflix was wanting to go streaming, and and so they were actually going to be in the hardware business too. And so they they were working with Roku to make basically the Netflix box. So people, so it wasn't going to be like, Netflix is everywhere. It was going to be this is the Netflix box, and you buy the box and you get Netflix and all that stuff. And I guess obviously the story changed a little bit, and Netflix went everywhere, and Roku kind of went its own thing, and now has Netflix and HBO and all these other people on Stream Now on that box. So
Yeah, when you say streaming, that reminds me of this website called creativelive.com, where you can watch people give certain lectures on, say, business or art and craft or music production live. But if you want to like download it or rewind it, you have to pay for the actual broadcast.
I like that. That's good.
Yeah, it's interesting. But what I've also noticed that not all of them are really live, so it's not really like live in front of the in front of a studio audience, that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit
Yeah.
cheeky that way at times.
Right.
But it's
Well, you're not there for the audience. You're there for the content, right?
well,
So.
yeah. But it's not really live though. That's the thing. So it's just like here's another video here. Just do the schedule it on Monday and we're done with it. What's next?
All right.
Um, yeah. You also talked about how you wanted to get people. Oh yeah, you mentioned growth, content, and platform with regards to the free engines, like putting them on full steam ahead.
Yeah.
That reminds me of World of Warcraft, because back in the early days, like 2004 and 5 and maybe 6, they were very much on the like affiliate marketing kind of bandwagon, where an existing customer has a referral code to get somebody else on board.
Right.
So
Right.
my question is, how are you going about growing the platform, and do you have anything like that at all built in, where customers can refer other people to get bonuses or anything like that?
No, I've looked at affiliate programs. It's it's something worth looking at more, I suppose. I've used like what is it, CJ Junction or whatever. It's like an affiliate program where you can have companies, and so for me, I was putting some of that stuff on my website and to refer off, and I didn't make very much money from them, so I don't know how much. I don't know. It made me kind of rethink how much I need to spend on or time putting into this affiliate program. Because if I'm not making a whole lot of money from being an affiliate, then I'm not sure how much I would make, you know, by creating an affiliate program. So, that was a kind of a big kind of growth hack for a lot of startups. Probably about 5 years ago or so, and it's kind of waned a little bit now. It's like if I get another Candy Crush invite or something like that, I'm gonna hit somebody. So yeah, I mean, but I have a kind of an affiliate type, promo code type of thing where with certain publications like Cord Cutters News and stuff of that nature. Um, so I've chosen, at least at this point, but again, that's not set in stone, to focus more on who has my audience and then kind of work out a sort of affiliate type of thing with them instead. So
Yeah, so also I'm just very curious. I want to go back a tiny bit because you talked about your reason why for starting Stream Now.
yeah.
Something to do with talent. Could you elaborate on the reason why you started it?
Well, so again, the main thing was that I was trying to get this show made, and I knew it was good. Um, the reality is we took some bad advice like 2 days before the meeting with with the streaming company, and we wound up failing. But I didn't really recognize how bad the advice was going into it, and so for me, again, it was more of there has to be other people like me that are trying to make awesome content, but just can't get into the door, right? They can't get the cable. And honestly, most people couldn't even get to where I was. I mean, almost nobody gets to go meet with the top executives from this company, right? It's a pretty small pool of people. So at least I got up to bat. Most people don't even get up to bat to make the pitch. And so I just knew there had to be, a lot more people like that out there. And if I could just, like I said, if I could almost create this ecosystem, then I could be part of it. And so then I could start making stuff. And that's happening, actually. I'm actually working on a film right now, and StreamNow is actually diving into music now. So I'm actually partnering with a group out of the UK called Trash Arts. And so we've started doing kind of an old school, like MTV style format where we're playing music videos and we have VJs and stuff like that. So we're actually doing original content, and it's it's happening. That's why I started, and that's still part of the roadmap. So,
going into music, that's pretty cool. I like the sounds of that.
Yeah.
And what was this bad advice you got?
So at the time, again, I'll try and not name names here, but at the time, it was right when this company was starting to spend a lot of money on original content. And so everybody in the industry is buzzing about, how much money is being spent on these shows and stuff of that nature. And so we got in touch with a line producer. If you're familiar with, basically a line producer is kind of the person who, in a film or a project or whatever will, put the budget together and all that stuff and kind of put a price on everything. And so we went from a budget of, I think we were trying to get $3 million for something like 13 episodes. We went from that budget to, I think, 15 million or something like that. It was something stupid. And so when we get in there, it's like, they're like, hey, you know what? We'd like second run at this. So if you get it made, we'd buy it. But we don't want to produce it. And so we keep on pushing, and they're like, look, you guys it's a good, it's the Human Experience which is what we were basing it off of, is the film called The Human Experience. Is a good show or a good movie, but you guys are still relative unknowns. And so, we're able to buy content from major, networks out here per episode for the same price. And so, and we know that audience is there and all that stuff. And so that was basically it. That was the probably the biggest factor of us, I think, not getting it. If I had to look back, although there's probably other factors too that I'm not aware of. So.
All right, so tell me about.
But yeah, that's a lesson, because I remember thinking and having a conversation with Michael Campo, the filmmaker, and saying, I don't know why we would ask for so much more than we need, and and of course it's like, well, we don't get back in deals with it, and da 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 da, and so I was like, look, I'm not the filmmaker, but to me, I just don't understand how this makes sense. But we'll if this person says it and you're a filmmaker and all that stuff, then yeah, let's give it a go. And so, but it's a lesson. And I think if you ask Michael to go back too, I think it's a lesson in that you need to kind of trust your gut. I mean, it's good to seek guidance, mentorship, advice, do your homework, all this other stuff, but you still do need to follow your gut a little bit. And if your gut's not right, I mean, hell, it'll probably even affect the way you're presenting it to a degree, I'd say. So, big lesson learned there.
And is this the story with the co-founder you were referring to earlier?
No. So Michael is still probably one of my best friends, and I guess he's on the content team for StreamNow as well. So like when submissions come in, he's part of the one of the guys that kind of does first screen. So both he and Eric, who I mentioned earlier, the two people that kind of asked me to keep getting into film and stuff with them while I was in my old startup. That was those two guys are still involved. The movie I'm producing right now is with Eric Vale, and so I'm still heavily involved with both of them. So.
All right.
I'm not going to say the name of the old co-founder. So.
Okay, that's all right. Okay, but as we begin to wrap up this podcast,
yep.
So what is it you're working on now, and what is next for you?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we are working on a film called Purity, which is kind of a thriller loosely based off of true events. And it's being directed and written by Eric Vale, who is actually a pretty famous dude in the anime world. So and then we have several other people that are actually like voice actors in anime that are involved. And then Peter Frampton, who is like a legend, right? Rock and roll legend, is actually doing the original score for us, which is awesome. And so we're in pre-production on that right now. And so that's something that's taking a lot of time and working on right now. And then we're shooting. I don't know where are you located exactly? What part?
Well, West Midlands.
Okay, so you're familiar with Portsmouth, right?
Yes.
So that's where Trash Arts is. So we're filming the next Stream Now music part in that region next Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of cool. And so yeah, still continuing to work on the original content portion of Stream Now. That's really kind of the focus of where it is right now and sort of where it's going.
And what is next for you?
Well, isn't this enough?
Okay. Just curious for stories. That's all.
No. That's sort of it. Is now this is the next stage, and it's kind of still happening and still forming right now for me, who initially set out to try and get into the film industry, and then I've kind of been doing this other thing to build the platform itself. But now this is the next part for me is that I'm actually, working on these projects to make films and shows and stuff of that nature. So I think that's going to be the next thing for me is like I'm really going to start diving into the actual production of the films,
Because at the start you said you're not an actor or a director or producer. Do you think this is your way of getting into the film industry?
Well, that's it. I mean, I'm telling you, this is this is the reason I started Stream Now, is so I could basically almost create my own industry or my own part of the industry. That was it. I mean, I had no other entry in other than to make it myself. So.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So I want to try something new. Something new, Ron. Let's get the ball rolling. So, two things. What advice do you give for people to lead a remarkable life?
To lead a remarkable life. Well,
whether entrepreneurs or not.
Yeah. So, for me, I'm a father. And I'm a Christian also, so I don't know. Hopefully that's not, out of line to say on your show. Hopefully that's okay. But anyway, yeah, for me, I think just living a remarkable life is actually just kind of, for me, is kind of following the Word of God for the most part. And even if you're not a Christian, I think you can kind of get enough out of the Bible to say, this is a good way to live in terms of, how to treat people, stuff of that nature. And, even saying that, growing up a Christian, I mean, I'm kind of a free thinker and kind of, I've gotten into enough trouble and all that stuff in my time. So to know that, even as a Christian, I'm pretty, fallible. But as I became a parent as well, and seeing them see me, seeing my kids see me, has really it's made me just kind of do the right thing, because you're kind of like you're forming this little person. so I guess if I would say anything, is just like maybe whether you're a Christian or not, maybe give the Bible a once over, just to kind of see, kind of like our founding fathers did. Our founding fathers, at the United States, Jefferson wrote his own Bible, if you're familiar with that or not, the Jeffersonian Bible or whatever, where he took all the miracles out. He didn't necessarily believe that all the the crazy miracle stuff happened in the Bible, but he thought that the principles of it were so good that he wrote his own Bible, but took all the mystical stuff out. So even if you're an atheist, maybe give it a once over and just kind of suspend belief for a minute that all the other stuff happened or didn't happen, and just follow that model.
No, we're quite big on the Second Amendment here, and me as well, very individually. A few years ago, actually, in October 2014, I studied, quote-unquote, and learnt the very basics of the American Constitution.
Okay.
And the concept of small government and libertarianism or things like that, not really existent in Europe, or certainly in the UK, where it's just what party is empowered this time, we need more laws on this and more laws on that, when it's actually a different paradigm in the States. So that's interesting interesting concept right there.
Well, you know what, though, that's like more of a sexier, that's like a sexier concept of it, but we're starting to get bogged down with too many laws too, in my opinion. I'm a libertarian, and I think there's too much. And a friend of mine, Aaron Matalora, who started a company called VeepWorks, he and I were talking about some of the other regions of the world, and like certain regions in Asia and stuff getting like fiber networks for for internet and all that stuff. It's like you can get better internet in like some of these third world countries than you can in America, because of all the just regulations and stuff that it takes. And then Hyperloop, if you're familiar with that concept that Elon Musk came up with, and hearing the founders of that company talk, they suspect that from a consumer basis that it's going to get utilized way further in advance in other countries, because of all the regulations of the U.S. that have to be fought. so they see kind of the first use case in the U.S. as being probably something more for cargo as opposed to passengers. So I think America has this like sexy ideal of what it's supposed to be, but it's eroding in itself, just like any other big institution. There's more rules and all that stuff. A little disappointing as a libertarian in that respect.
So how do you think the laws are affecting Stream Now or the film industry in the States?
I would say right now it's not affecting us too badly, although the new FCC chairman is a former mobile executive, and so the biggest I'd say the biggest threat right now for us is the whole net neutrality issue and throttling data speeds, or certainly having to kind of pay to play. If that really did happen or takes place, then people like Netflix, who have fought for net neutrality, or Amazon, are really going to benefit from it at this point, because they're big enough to pay for it, and it kind of squishes the little guy coming up, who, for me, I couldn't afford to pay the fees that would come along with not throttling the data speeds. And you got to imagine, 4K televisions are really taking off now and becoming very affordable and stuff. If stuff's streaming in 4K, it takes a lot of power to stream stuff in 4K, right? And so you got to have some good speed for that. And so I'd say that that's one regulation right off the bat that I could think of. Otherwise, starting a company and all that stuff, it's actually still really awesome in America to you can have an idea and put it out, in 6 weeks probably, and have it ready to go. Have your EIN number and have an idea, and things are becoming so cheap to actually just create, right? So, 10 years ago, it cost a lot of money just to build a website. You can do that relatively inexpensive now. So
yeah, things are going to get cheaper and cheaper.
yeah.
But as we wrap up this podcast, though, there's one other thing I want to ask you, and this is
Sure.
you have the honour actually, honour of
Okay.
getting this started. So what I want to do is I'll ask you a question, and then the person that's going to answer that is the guest on the next show.
Okay.
So, Ron, considering what you said and your background and who you are and all the things you said, what do you want to ask the person that's going to appear on the next show?
Let's see. I'm going to break it off, and I'm going to say if they're a new entrepreneur, uh, I would say, or actually, I would say if they're a seasoned entrepreneur, what did they learn from their last startup? And if they are a new entrepreneur, I would say, what is the first thing that really kicked you in your junk? Because I think I mentioned to you, and I feel like I really almost wanted to spend more time on some of the failures that I've had and all that stuff on this podcast, but I really feel like, if people really knew how the battlefield really looks when you start a company, you just can't even imagine the arrows that are flying at you from every direction. So I'd kind of just say, what's the first lesson you learned so far if you're a new entrepreneur?
Yeah, great. I'll add that in. I want to get the ball rolling on that. It's a cool little
All
thing
right.
to have.
All
Yeah,
right.
I'll add that in. So, Ron, thanks a lot for coming on the show.
All right.
And
Appreciate it.
Thanks. And what is the best way for the audience to get in touch with you?
I have my DMs open on Twitter, so you can always just shoot me a DM on Twitter. It's at StreamNowCEO.
And what's the website?
So I've got StreamNowTV.com and then StreamNow Pro. And we didn't really dive into that much, but but yeah, there's two. There's a free version and then a premium version. So
I'll include the links to those in the show notes.
that's awesome.
Yeah, how cool is that?
I like it. I like it.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Ron, for coming on the show.
Yeah, it was a blast. I'm glad to hear what you guys are doing. What you're doing over there. It's a cool show. I got to listen to my friend Ricardo on a couple weeks ago, I guess now, and that's the first time I'd heard your show. So it's awesome.
Yeah, we're only getting started.
All right.
So thanks a lot. And ladies and gentlemen at home, if you haven't already, click on the subscribe button below and press the bell notification right next to it for the latest uploads. Because this channel, everything I'm doing, is to help you helping 1 million entrepreneurs become remarkable, to live the life they want, and to go out there into the world and do something remarkable with your time and your life. Because that is what it's all about.